Almost. Major. Holy fucking shit, this is major!
So, based on this movie where the main characters have their favorite filmmakers tattooed on their bodies, I'm curious to know, if you were forced to get a tattoo, or, wanted to get a tattoo, which filmmaker would you want tattooed on your body?
I don't know. Gosh, I was going to wait and think about this.
Tony K? Is that your answer? Troy Duffy? Uwe Boll? Almost Major's Uwe Boll?
Friend of the pod, Uwe Boll. I don't know. Carl Franklin, like someone who's like has an interesting career. I don't know. Like maybe I should think of an auteur though, like because that's like their thing with their tattoos.
I mean, that would be you taking an individual stance. So it's like, nah, we need to respect the journeyman directors and everything. People who like slip through the cracks.
Yeah. Have you seen Out of Time? It's fucking awesome.
That movie does rule.
It does rule.
Yeah,
it does.
Actually, but to name an auteur, I guess like Jim Jarmusch like means a lot to me. So I guess
you would just get his hair tattooed on you. Yeah. Just famous hair guys of movies. You got David Lynch's hair. You got his hair. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's
well,
it.
I already have a portrait of Stanley Kubrick tattooed on me, and also Ryan Gosling and Carey Mulligan from Drive. So I've already got that covered. But if I had to get another one, it's like Fincher's my favorite director, but I'm not getting him tattooed on me. Like, there's no like cool pictures of him or anything like that. I haven't really thought of any movie tattoos I'd get lately. Cause
you could have the picture of like Fincher taking the shot at the 2020 Golden Globes whenever Mank lost an award.
Okay, well now I have to make an appointment because that sounds genius. But I can't think of any more that I would get because I haven't got one in like 7 years or something like that. My next one's gonna be Prince, and I know that, and I've been needing to get that forever. But yeah, I can't think of any more movie ones that I'd want, but I don't know.
I'd probably get David Lynch sitting next to the cow when he was advertising Laura Dern.
For your consideration.
For your consideration for Inland Empire. I am one of those people, though, who think tattoos are awesome, but I'm such an indecisive, anxious person that I'm, like, worried by the next day I'd be like, I should have gotten it here, or I don't know.
Well, I already regret, like, 3 of them, so you're fine.
We know from experience.
Like 3 of them, probably. But I got my first one when I was like 19, so I mean, it's gonna happen.
What was your first one?
Oh, yeah.
My first one, it's covered up now, but it was the heart from Kanye West's 808s and Heartbreak. Oh. That was my first one. And then I got another one, and then I was like, I should probably make this a sleeve somehow, so both of those are kind of covered up. It's a whole thing. I kind of ran out of real estate on my arms, and I'm just like, I could have done so much better, but oh well. I have a Blair Witch tattoo. That's all I care about.
My friend Greg has a really awesome sleeve where it's a film reel that's just around his arm, and he has blank spots for new movies he sees, but he's got like stills from Mulholland Drive and Magnolia and City Lights and stuff like that. But he's kind of like, yeah, there's blank spots just in case, I feel the need to get one and I see something new. So I think that's really cool.
Brian, and Kev, you were just showing us your newest one. It says Miranda, Samantha, Charlotte, Carrie.
Don't fucking test me, dude. Like, if somebody was like, I bet you $5 you won't do that, I'd be like, I'm gonna fucking do it.
Well, yeah.
You just have a tattoo of the episode of Miranda, like, face down on her bathroom floor when Carrie sends Aiden over to get it.
No, I have just Steve. Steve is the greatest character ever. I would probably get him tattooed. I love him so much.
Have you seen the one? Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna get 20 Simpsons tattoos. Why can't I just throw a Steve in there? Why not?
Have you seen the episode of Law and Order SVU where Steve from Sex and the City plays the guy who cuts off women's legs?
What? I can see it.
Insane.
But what?
It's insane. He has like an underground lair that's like decorated at the ceiling as just like prosthetic legs dangling from it, and there's like this moment.
I'm gonna watch this.
There's a moment where Mariska Hargitay's like questioning a sex worker on like the side of a highway who was like paid by Steve from Sex and the City for her to have her leg amputated, and she was like, "Why did you do it?" And she was like, "I was messed up on crack. I was gonna get my life right," and looks down at where she no longer has a leg and says, "Can't do it now," and then walks out of the frame and is never seen again. It's insane.
Well, yeah, I love Steve. Steve's the best. And what did they do in the first movie? They made him cheat on Miranda. It's bullshit.
Wait,
doesn't
he
exist.
cheats on Miranda in the first movie?
Yes, it's so stupid. It makes that. That's why the movies are just fan fiction to me. They're stupid. They don't exist. Which is so weird because it's the original. I think it's not the season 1 creator because that's Star.
It's Michael. What's his name, right?
Michael King something.
Patrick
he
King.
takes over.
Looking it up now.
Yeah. He takes over after like season 2 or 3, and he's the one that does the movies. But Darren Star is the one that does the first season, and also he had oh god, what's her name that did Smithereens?
Oh, Susan Seidelman?
Yeah, she did a lot of the first season's episodes, and it's a really great first season. But yeah, Michael Patrick King, and
he's doing
he's
doing And Just Like That, I believe.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, the title of a show that I've gotten wrong, I don't know, 30 times in the past week. I was like, and So It Goes, is that what it's called? And There We Were, is that what it's called?
I'm surprised they didn't call
It'd
it.
Be Like That? No.
I couldn't help but wonder. I'm surprised they didn't go with that.
That's what they should have done. Oh man.
Bryden, what director would you have tattooed on you?
If I
Michael
was
Patrick King.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think
David
I would.
Chase.
I would not get a tattoo. Yeah, I do like Not Fade Away, but yeah. It'd be weird if I picked like a one-off director, someone who like famously didn't direct more movies. But
Right. Yeah.
yeah. I wouldn't get a tattoo, but if I was like forced down and like this is like you gotta get a tattoo and it's like you gotta like pick a filmmaker you really like, I'd be like I don't know, Jonathan Demme would be one. Yeah, I don't know if I didn't know the way you guys were talking about it. You were like talking about like it's got to be like a picture of the director. I didn't know that was like part of it. I think I just go the CECIL B Demented route.
No, it could be a name. I have Kubrick's face and stuff like that. I wouldn't just get like David Fincher, like in fucking Times New Roman or some shit.
Or like
Right.
the 7 font, like the 7 credits font of like David Fincher.
Well, Kevin, you do have John G. raped and murdered my wife tattooed across your chest, though.
How'd that get there? Wow. Oh yeah.
Everyone.
Well, no, I mean, like, the distinction is kind of important, right? Because, like, Kubrick has a very distinct looking face, much more than Fincher does. And, like, the same with my Jarmusch example, like, instantly iconic look that he's always sporting. But I'll also be, like, comfortable if I just got the word on my knuckles or something.
Could Fincher fit Fincher?
You have to squeeze him in.
Exclamation point. There we go.
That would
Got
be
it.
funny if you had a question mark instead of an exclamation point.
Fincher? Who's your favorite director? I don't know. Fincher, I guess. I don't know. I saw Mank. I put the question mark after I saw Mank.
I still haven't seen Mank, even though we were in lockdown. I love Fincher, but I don't know. Something about that movie seems like homework to me, and I just can't bring myself to watch it.
You're kind of not wrong. I don't think it's bad, but it's just fine. And fanboy or not, I think all of his movies are pretty fantastic. So
It's clearly, like, a passion
him having a
project.
fine movie is it's like it has like it doesn't feel like a Fincher movie. That's a weird thing. Like there are some things you can notice. Like it feels like whenever you watch like one of his commercials or music videos, that you're like, oh, that's a tidbit I've kind of picked up from his movies. That's what all of Mank kind of feels like.
Yeah.
And I understand it's very sentimental and his dad wrote it and whatnot, and it feels like just something he had to do. But the next movie he's doing with Fassbender, that sounds
The Killer.
like some good shit. Yes.
Yes, Tilda Swinton, too, I think.
I'm just thinking about when Bryden's being held down and they're just like, I'm giving you a tattoo, but I'm giving you the option to choose a director you like. And they're just like...
Do they still have a scrapbook of, like, names you can flip through, or...
Yeah, it's just John
Let me check my
Doe's
letterbox,
notebooks.
please.
Would you do him? Oh, I don't know. He had kind of like 2 minutes. The time is running out. Come on.
I mean,
What's your
Jonathan
code?
Demme, Jonathan Demme's a great pick. He's one of my favorites.
What's in your watch list?
I watched this movie before I joined Letterboxd.
Hey, hell, I even love Justin Timberlake and the Tennessee Kids, which is his last movie.
Great. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
2020 Experience, perfect album. Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah.
Cry Me a River.
Not Man in the Woods, though. Let's not talk about that. Welcome to Almost Major, a podcast where we talk about many major studios and the films they release. We are still on our artisan kick. My name is Kevin Tudor, and with me is Charlie Nash. Say hi.
Hello.
And Bryden Doyle.
Hello.
And today we have a guest. You've already heard him. He is one of the half of Exiting through the 2010s. It is Clay Williams. Oh, fuck. No. Oh, shit. I guess. No, we didn't get him. I guess we got Jack Draper instead.
Listen,
I guess it fell through.
If I was on the call sheet at all, that was as big an honor as I can think of. But yeah, it's a pleasure to hang with y'all, fellas.
Yeah.
Of course.
We are talking about CECIL B. Demented, a 2000 movie from John Waters. We will go through a little bit of the stuff here. It premiered at Cannes in May 2000. It had a limited USA release August 11th, 2000 in 9 theaters, where it made, that opening weekend made $127,000 at its peak. It was playing at 82 theaters and finished with $1.2 million, and it was a budget of $10 million. And if you kind of look what he does kind of after this, you can kind of see that I think New Line, and because he usually works with New Line, but I guess this was an Artisan, just kind of detour. But Dirty Shame also made like $1 million on like a $15 million budget, and he said that like, yeah, after Dirty Shame, it's like nobody will give me money, and it's like, yeah, well, unfortunately, but at least you got a lot to crack at. But it's written and directed by John Waters. Prior to this, he did Pecker in 1998. After this, he would direct his, so far, his last movie in A Dirty Shame in 2004. He has had a Christmas movie he's wanted to make called Fruitcake since 2007, which New Line Cinema and Killer Films both passed on.
It was gonna be with Johnny Knoxville and Parker Posey who were gonna be in it. Yeah.
Why the fuck isn't this released? Oh my god.
Guys, I think we need to start wiring money into John Waters to make
I mean,
this.
the
Dog.
MPAA also fucked him with a Dirty Shame by slapping an NC-17 on that. And while it is raunchy as hell, I mean, like, it's not it's not mean or like.
I think it's all about sex. Like, it's just like, I don't
There's
remember
nothing
like specifics.
there.
Because I think I watched A Dirty Shame after I watched Cecil B. Demented for the first time, which was an early Netflix DVD that I got. So I don't remember much besides Tracy Ullman and the bottle scene.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty much all I remember.
You don't remember Selma Blair and her gargantuan prosthetic breasts?
I remember that, and I also remember the last line being "Let's go sexing," and then Johnny Knoxville's head turns into a giant penis, and he comes everywhere. So
They also lose all their sex drive due to antidepressants, which is someone who has been on antidepressants for more than half their life. That is true. But anyway.
yes, yeah. Yes. Starring the great Stephen Dorff as the titular Cecil B. Demented. Prior to this, he was in fucking Blade in 1998. And after this, he was in the classic film that could never be dated, Fear.com, in 2002. I still need to watch that movie.
You haven't seen Fear.com?
That is a hate watch that I know I'm going to enjoy.
Okay, the last 15 minutes of Fear.com are kind of awesome. It's a terrible movie, and I mean it's awesome in its horribleness, but like it has a vision. I will give it that. It's enjoyably.
Yeah. Can you please promise me a Fear.com bonus episode?
My favorite tidbit about that movie too is that the website that they go to that makes people like kill themselves.
Fear.com.com.
Fear.com.com. FEARDOTCOM.com.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Too bad we can't do Fear.com. It's a Warner Brothers movie. It's too major for us.
Yeah, that's way too major.
Oh, man.
I blindly bought it for like $2 at a Newbury Comics. It was like, I have to see this shit, and it was $2 well spent.
Hell yeah. I've seen the trailer for it, and I was like, is this the darkest looking movie I've ever seen? Like, maybe it's just a bad trailer transfer, but I was just like, I can't see anything.
Like literally, not the content, but they forgot to light.
No,
the,
no,
Oh yeah,
the
no. The
filming.
cinematography
It's just
is
like-
yeah.
That is it a Dark Castle movie, or did they only
is.
do remakes?
It is a Dark Castle
Really?
movie. No, because they also did stuff like Gothica,
Ghost Ship and
Ghost Ship.
Because I was just reminded of House on Haunted Hill the other day because I was watching Gossip Girl, which is an incredible show, and Lisa Loeb shows up, and I was just like looking through her filmography. I was like, oh yeah, she shows up like 20 seconds in House on Haunted Hill as just a reporter. Like,
Same director as
and then
Fear.com, by the way. William.
Oh hell yeah!
William
It
Malone?
is. It is. Yep.
But yeah, I was like looking through her filmography, and that's like one of the only things where it's not just her playing herself. She was, I don't know how that happened, but anyways, Fear.com aside, I wish we were talking about that, but alas. Melanie Griffith as Honey Whitlock. Prior to this, she was in the remake of Lolita in 1997, and of course in Working Girl in 1988. And after this, she voices the enigmatic, some would say even career-making performance as the voice of Margalo the Bird in Stuart Little 2.
I also forgot about this, that both she and John Waters had been in Something Wild together. There's like
Yes, they were.
there's like
That's
one scene
right.
performance with John Waters in Something
He's
Wild.
the restaurant owner.
No, he's like the car dealer, I think, when they're getting like new cars or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great movie.
and
Right.
he actually mentions that. I have a book of John Waters' interviews, and he said he always wanted to work with her, and he actually hired her because she had started taking big risks, and it was after he saw the Larry Clark film Another Day in Paradise, which I have not seen, but he mentions
I've not seen that either.
he mentions in the interview that when he saw when he saw Melanie Griffith shoot heroin up into her vagina, that he was like, I want to hire her. So
He was like, I can get her.
Yeah.
This will be easy.
yeah, basically.
As he takes a
And then
long drag from a cigarette.
Yeah,
And
pretty
in
much.
another interview with IndieWire, Waters talks about how Antonio Banderas was very supportive of Griffith making the movie and how he was on set a lot of the time. Which is nice to know.
He also mentions in another interview, I don't think it's the same one for IndieWire, but he was like, I mean, you know, Antonio Banderas started off with Pedro Almodovar.
Yeah.
I'm sure that, you know, she would be down for this. Another thing that I think is interesting, because I didn't remember that it premiered at Cannes, he mentions in one interview that he made this film for $9.3 million, and the interviewer says, one of my friends thought the people in Hollywood would be insulted by the film, but another friend and I think that they are going to find it really funny. And Waters replied, so far, I think your other friend is right, because I got the money to make it all in France. When I tried to make this movie in Hollywood, they all said no. And the Hollywood Reporter gave me a very, very mean review. So
Yeah, because
Now, is-
Studio Canal produced it.
That's what they distributed for the whole world, and Artisan is U.S. distribution. That's
Yeah.
what
Is
he
John
talks
Waters
about.
like a Cannes regular? Or
I don't know. I doubt Pecker went to Cannes, but I'm also surprised that this went to Cannes, so I don't know.
yeah.
Oh, I'm
mean-
looking up.
yeah,
he
like
was on a
because
jury.
he's always like very Sundance type filmmaker, like very low budgeted, and but
It says I looked up John Waters Cannes, and he was on the jury in the 1995 Cannes Film Festival, which that's
Wow.
Oh.
the year. What wins that year? Something called Underground by Amir Kusturica.
I am
Interesting.
embarrassed to say I don't know what that is.
Neither do I,
Yeah.
but that's interesting. Yeah. So yeah, he was. I guess he was okay with the Cannes crew, and he talks about too, Kevin, about like Hollywood, like how this movie does with like the Hollywood crowd. I think it's in an IndieWire interview. He says he thinks that people in the movie business will like it because he said like Pecker is making fun of the art world, and people who are in the art scene also likes that movie too. So it's yeah.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Pecker's a Waters blind spot, and he's one of my favorite filmmakers, and I own it. I just haven't seen it yet. I have no reason.
It's pretty good. I like that one. It's also funny because in CECIL B Demented, which we will be talking about that more in depth as we go on. But
We have context here. I mean,
Yeah.
This isn't fat. This isn't
No,
just saying.
yeah, but it's funny how
we know why John Waters wanted to work with Melanie Griffith now. Like this,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'm sorry. But so in CECIL B Demented, they go to the movie theater and they have the poster for The Limey, which is an Artisan release. And it's funny because Pecker was a New Line Cinema release, or maybe it was Fine Line Features, one of those. It was under that umbrella though, and Final Destination is a New Line Cinema movie, and there's a scene where Devon Sawa's character has a Pecker poster in his bedroom, and people have like pointed out on Twitter like, why does he have this poster?
He's a big Pecker fan, man.
He also mentions that he got basically the same amount of money or around the same amount of money for this movie that he did for Pecker, and he was like, with Pecker it was easy. It was just people talking. This movie, people shoot each other. Like, they set their hair on fire. Like, so
People got pneumonia in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, and also, those are our main leads, but there's just a slew of supporting characters, from Maggie Gyllenhaal in one of her first performances, playing a Satanist. Vinny Chase is in it. You may know him as Adrian Grenier, but Alicia Witt, Michael Shannon, and Ricky Lake. And some quick facts on this movie. Well, I'll save that for the last one. John Waters wrote the rap songs in the movie, so that's cool.
Nice.
Moby does
John
the
Waters
opening credits song, by the way. Did you see that?
I know, that's so weird.
What an early
Moby does
2000s
the
choice.
intro.
Yeah.
Yeah. John Waters' inspiration for this film came when Film Thread magazine told its readers to attack the readers of Premiere magazine, and some did. He got called Cecil B. Demented in a headline interview and had to use it as a title for the film. And the last trivia is this movie is very much influenced by the kidnapping of Patricia Hearst in 1974, and she appears as Fidget's mother and appears in, I think, all of his movies post Crybaby.
Yeah.
What do you guys know about the case of Patty Hearst? Because strangely, I forget what got me onto it, but like a month ago, I just randomly went down the rabbit hole, read an audiobook, watched a documentary, all that stuff, and then while I was going through the Artisan movies, I was like, oh yeah, Cecil B. Demented is like based on Patty Hearst. So I was like, did all this research without knowing it was research for that.
I did the bare minimum. I also am ashamed to admit that I have the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray of Patty Hearst, the Paul Schrader film, and have not
Yeah,
yet
I haven't
watched
seen
it.
that yet. I haven't seen that yet.
I
By the
haven't
time I
seen
went through
Schrader's
the
Patty Hearst either.
audiobook
Yeah.
and the 6-part docuseries, I was like, all right, I've had enough.
Waters actually gave, one of the interviews I was reading with him, it was Nitrate Online, the person conducting the interview was Cynthia Fuchs, who, if I'm not mistaken, was a writer for Common Sense Media at one point, but anyways, that's neither here nor there. He talks about how he's tight with Patty Hearst, though. He says he went to her trial. She later said,
Wow.
This is a quote from him. She later said to me that it was because of people like me that she went to prison. She was right, because I wanted her to be someone she wasn't. I wanted her to be Tanya, this left-wing rich girl gone bad. What she was a victim that made the right decision to stay alive. She would have burned up in that house, because that's one of the things that they happened, like the police burned up the house that the group was hiding out in. What she was it was only by luck that she wasn't in it. She hates the SLA for kidnapping her, and she hates the cops for putting her in prison. When does it end? She served her time, yet it will never, ever end. She doesn't think it's funny what happened to her, but she does have a great sense of humor. And he talks about, at this point, this is in 2000, she's made 3 movies with him. He says, bad taste would be asking her to be in a bank robbery scene. She never used to sign autographs when she was asked for them, but now that she's been in 4 movies, she signs them. It's given her freedom to sign autographs. Finally, a way to have some sort of pleasure from this celebrity that she didn't ask for when it happened. Yeah, and like he talks about how the people that he still stays in touch with, it's he talks about.
I think he said he talks to Stephen Dorff like every year on his birthday or something like that.
Yeah. He says I always talk to Stephen Dorff on his birthday. Haven't seen Melanie Griffith in a while. Usually I do. I run into Michael Shannon every once in a while, or Mike Shannon as he's billed in this movie. And Adrian Grenier, Patricia Hearst, and I are still friends. I'm still in touch with them, which is funny to just think about, like that group of people: Grenier, Hearst, and Waters.
Yeah,
Right.
I saw John Waters just this past Friday. So when we're recording, that was 5 days ago. He did his usual Christmas stand-up special that he always mixes up every single year, and especially considering last year when we were all in lockdown, he had a lot of stuff to say, especially related to the pandemic, and he did mention that he's still in touch with Patty Hearst, or Patricia Hearst. So he also mentioned, which I thought was funny, he was like, for this year's fucked up Christmas, let's get a theater open where you have to test positive for COVID in order to get in, which I thought was hilarious. And I think he was like, we can watch airplane crash movies for Christmas. Like, he was mentioning all of these things. The one was in 3D where it was just like basically like the God, I'm so good at vocabulary for the cockpit. Just like text of like the fucking like the data board or whatever, and it was all in 3D apparently. And he was just like, you're just watching like a screen of like just data, and like you're just listening to people fucking nosedive into oblivion. Like, and he was like, this movie's in 3D for some reason.
Get everybody in a theater to watch the HBO movie Turbulence from the late 90s with Ray Liotta. Yeah, that'd be fun.
He also mentioned that one of his favorite films of the year, which is I'm forgetting the title of it, but he's like, it's never going to come out. It's by the guy who directed Human Centipede, and apparently it's about people who just masturbate to horrible real life events. Apparently, people just like
The
jerk
Onanya
off to
Club.
9/11.
I've seen this trailer. It
Yeah.
looks wild.
What?
He went off on that. Yeah, he was just like, it's never going to get distribution. So if you can find it, good luck. But it's great. And I'm like, I hate the Human Centipede with every fiber of my being, but I will watch this. That sounds like something.
You think that's bad? I saw the sequel, which is worse.
Ugh.
Yeah. What's this one called? Oh, okay, I found it. Boy howdy are the ratings all over the board on Letterboxd. Anyways, yeah, I'm never gonna watch it, and it's never gonna come out. Anyways, Tom Six, that's the director I would get tattooed on me. Yeah.
Ugh.
Tom.
If you tattooed Tom Six on any part of my body, I would jump in front of a bus, or at least try. Well, you know what? I would try to get. I'd be like, well, I don't know how much this is going to cost, but at least I don't have Tom Six on me to get laser surgery, and if I can't afford that, then it'd probably
No, just put weights underneath Tom, and then it just says Tom Waits 6. It's like, that's how many times I saw him in concert. Please.
What about Mick G? There's another.
Oh, I'd do it. The motherfucker made Charlie's Angels. He's good for something.
and Terminator Salvation.
Yeah, totally. but also like he's an executive producer on the OC. So
That's crazy to me because even like Terminator 3, like Breakdown came out a few years ago, and Breakdown's fucking great. But like even though that movie was like disappointing, and obviously it's not up to the level of the first two, they were like, who can we hand the torch to? Oh, McG, like for Terminator Salvation.
Gotta do it.
And then
And
then Terminator Sega Genesis or whatever the fuck it was called. It was just a nightmare.
Yeah, from the director of Many Saints of Newark and Thor: The Dark World, Alan Taylor, I believe.
Oh,
is his
that
name?
guy? Oh,
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. And I didn't even see Dark Fate because the people behind Deadpool made that, and I was just like, yeah, that's I've suffered enough for this franchise where the first two were formative to me, and then the others, no thanks. So.
I'm CECIL B Demented, and this is a kidnapping.
Yeah! Call the studio! Call Jack
Hello, Miss Whitlock. I am CECIL B Demented, and I'm your new director. I'd like you to meet your co-stars. I call them the Sprocket holes. Don't worry, we're horny. But our film comes first.
Oh my God, it's Honey Whitlock! Patch Adams does not deserve a director's cut. The first one was long enough.
Honey Whitlock was always attracted to the wrong kind of man. She'd do anything for sex.
Go! No budget!
CECIL B Demented, you can never stop Hollywood.
You're one of us now. You know what to say.
You stink, Honey Whitlock! Family is just a dirty word for censorship!
So yeah, let's get into initial thoughts. Jack, as our guest, take us away.
This was really fun to revisit after so many years of my last viewing of CECIL B Demented. I have a really unique story with CECIL B Demented. I have a cousin who's way into film and like introduced me to a lot of cool stuff that was very formative at like 13, 14. And he's like, you gotta check out this guy, John Waters. He makes things that you've never seen before, and it's totally gross and like repulsive, and it'll just make you squirm. And I'm like, I'm in, because it's like at that age I was just consuming whatever, and if I sort of like wanted to see how far I can watch anything. Like, what can I see that it's like, oh wow, I've never seen anything like this before. And Waters was certainly someone like that, and we watched Hairspray together, and it's like, oh yeah, like this is like tame compared to other things, like looking back on it, but it's like, wow, this actually was like pretty unusual. Like and then later that night I saw CECIL B Demented, and I saw it outdoors, like on our patio, and I was like, oh, that was really good, like that was really funny. Like I had never like I'll always remember like some of the opening, and you know. And I tried to go back inside, and I finished it kind of late at night, and the doors were locked. So it's like I was like, okay, so I guess I'm I'm sleeping outside now, and
Oh wow.
but it was like summer, and it's like it was weird. But I always think of that story like
well, at least it wasn't winter. I mean,
yeah,
that would
yeah,
be very
exactly,
unfortunate.
yeah. But no, yeah, and this was one of my first John Waters. It's just like a great critique on the violence that can be misinterpreted, obviously, in movies in the early 2000s, and the kinds of people that were receiving mixed messages, but
Yeah, this is my first John Waters. Like I was saying, I saw it very early, Netflix DVD rental. Didn't really know anything about him, and then I watched Dirty Shame right after that. And then I don't think I watched any more until a few years ago when I went through a few of his movies, but I really loved it then, and I do still really like it now. It is very out there and very to the point and on the nose in a way that doesn't feel hammy. It feels very John Waters-y, which I appreciate. Just so many great one-liners that I really love, and everybody in the cast is just going really ham in it. Just Kevin Nealon as Forrest Gump is just we'll get into that, but
and they originally had Michael J. Fox in mind for the Kevin Nealon role.
I don't see that ever working. I don't see Michael J. Fox wanting to do that. Yeah. But I really enjoy it. It's also 88 minutes long. Both of this and Our Xmas, which will be next week's episode, just brisk watches, 80 minutes plus. Just great time. But yeah, really like it. I don't know where I would rank it, or if it's my favorite or not my favorite, but
I don't know either. Like, it's funny, like this year I've seen a lot more John Waters than any other year, just because they've come and gone on Criterion Channel. And it's like when Multiple Maniacs or Pink Flamingos was on there for one time, it's like, okay, that's my opportunity to catch it.
Right. Bryden?
Yeah, I was not quite as wild about this movie as everyone else on this call was, I think. And I think that's maybe just more of a me thing than Waters just might not be my guy. I mean, I've seen Pecker. I like that one. I watched it earlier this year. I don't really remember too much about it, though. It's not one of those movies that's lingered with me, but I did enjoy it. I watched Polyester as like today as preparation. That one didn't quite work with me either. It might just be the idea of like there are things about Waters that I like. I like that he does sort of take a more neutral view towards the kind of characters that would be viewed as outcasts or monstrous characters and everything. There is like that, like they're viewed more neutrally or like as just like sort of with a more affectionately than like the other characters, the supposedly normal characters in the movie. Like the suburban dads are viewed as like psychopaths and everything, and like movies like that. Whereas like Divine, who like drag performers. If that's, am I correct in referring to Divine as a drag performer?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I don't want to be
wrong.
Incorrect, but like where like that often those kind of characters in movies are viewed as jokes and everything. That's not. I'm not saying Divine is not funny in that movie. They are very funny, but the jokes are not made at their expense. It's like the performance that's like funny and everything when they're like, oh my gosh, like when they're like grabbing beer out of like the closet and everything, and it's like just like why the fact that they have booze like hidden all over the house is really funny. But I don't know, it might just be the execution and the pacing of Waters that I find like a little hard to do as in CECIL B Demented to make it about that movie. Like there's scenes where like reaction shots are held like just like a few beats too long for like the joke to really kind of have the right snap for me to like from just personally me like to find it funny. And some scenes, especially like the ending of this movie, I feel like the movie just kind of like stops more than like the scenes kind of like have like the right button to end on. It's just kind of like a weird pacing thing for me, and maybe just like how I the kind of comedy that I gravitate towards. And some of the performance styles too, I think some of the performances are better than others. It might just be like kind of like the in-your-face comedic style that like sometimes I'm just like I find it like a little bit overbearing, especially like is like where it seems like the performer, while I maybe admire them being game and being in on the joke, that can sort of like take this the sort of power out of it, where it's like I feel like you're trying, like I don't know how much this performance is like not ringing true, because this movie's not aiming for naturalism or anything, but it's like the kind of thing where I'm like, I feel like you're trying a little too hard to make it clear that like you're in on the joke or that you're trying to be funny. And it like kind of, again, this could be just like a thing that like I'm just maybe not Waters just might not be for me, and that's fine and everything. I'm glad he exists, and I think he's a very interesting interview subject. I had a lot of fun reading the interviews as research for this podcast, but I don't know. This movie didn't do a lot for me, but it does have some hit. I did like a couple of the performances. I think Maggie Gyllenhaal was really funny in this. The way that she does, I think she worked for me because like she sort of tosses off like these really insane lines in sort of like a blasé way, where it's like it's a Satanist thing, like where it's just like sort of it doesn't seem like she's trying to make it funny. It's just like she's like explaining it rationally. It's like yeah, you wouldn't get this and everything, but like this is what it is.
Yeah. It's good that you gave him chances though, like you know, Polyester and
and Pecker, I still stand by that. I'm not gonna like retroactively like
Pecker is like too sincere for me.
I don't know. I kind of liked it, and maybe that movie's weird too because like that movie has like a grounding force almost with Edward Furlong's character, where he is like just kind of like, I don't know what's going on here and everything. He's kind of like he's kind of
he's too much of like a milquetoast protagonist.
But I don't know. I kind of like it when like his friend Brendan Sexton III is like he's like the town shoplifter, and then when he becomes more publicized, he gets arrested for his crimes, and Furlong's like saying, I mean, he's a really nice guy when you get to know him, and it's just like I don't know.
Brandon Saxon III's in it.
Yeah,
and he's a shoplifter.
Yeah,
just like in Empire Records. Wow.
And like something that we talked about on my pod when we covered Spring Breakers, that Harmony Korine we talked about was someone who's like a mascot for their movies, like himself as a public personality is replicated in his movies, and John Waters feels this. I mean, granted, you could say that for a lot of filmmakers, but it's like John Waters, you can also very much apply that to. In the Filmmaker from our next movie, you can also apply that to. And just his essence and the presence he gives off, and the coolness. Like I've always found him very confident. And,
it's also funny that you mentioned. I think Maggie Gyllenhaal is great in this movie too, Bryden. It is funny watching it now in December of 2021 where she's scooping up awards for The Lost Daughter, which is good, by the way. I like that movie. It's just very funny to me because I think I haven't seen this movie in like 6 years, and just to her, the character she's playing, like I don't think that Maggie Gyllenhaal herself has like gone down the route that the character she plays here is like Lost Daughter is certainly like such a confident debut, and it is pretty unconventional in some ways. I just think it's funny now that like now she is like making her feature film debut and is getting universally applauded by several critics groups and awards circles. So I just thought that was interesting to see it now when we're recording.
To go back to Polyester real quick, I just remembered that one of the hardest times I've ever laughed is when the dog commits suicide.
That's really funny.
Funniest.
Yes.
Yeah. One of the hardest I've ever laughed. It's so good.
Also, Bryden, did you watch it with your Odorama card?
No, unfortunately, I don't have those. Although I think my mom has talked about how, I don't know if that movie like played at the Toronto Film Festival back in like the 80s, but like my mom says that she did see it with the Smell-O-Vision card, and she says she might still have it in like a box of her things. I'm sure it doesn't work because like it's like probably scratched and sniffed out from like 40 years ago now at this point, but like she has talked about that.
Yeah, I've never like I got Polyester on DVD like years ago with Desperate Living, which is one of my favorite John Waters films, and I was too like I can't like I like if I have to get rid of this for whatever reason, like I don't want to send them like a used Odorama card, like it could be valuable. And then like the Criterion collection I rebought, or I got it for Christmas actually from a friend, but it also has an Odorama card, and I'm still like I should, but I'm like but I can't do it just because I'm like, but I don't want to only use this once. I don't know. It's weird.
I wonder if you can just message Mr. Criterion and be like, can you send me another Odorama card? I'll give you like $2. But Charlie, initial thoughts?
Well, I mentioned earlier that I saw John Waters' Christmas stand-up for 2021 this past Friday, and I couldn't help but think about, this is the second time I've seen this movie, and he made a really funny joke that during his stand-up on Friday that was usually when I was growing up, we were always scared of the political the right-leaning political party, and we still are, but now you know what I'm even more scared of are underage woke leftists. And the thing is, we were those people back in the day, but we always made fun of ourselves, which these people never do. And I feel like that's what's going on with Cecil B. Demented, is he's making fun of mainstream Hollywood, but he is also making fun of himself, which is why I appreciated the humor. Like, I even read an interview where he was just like, I don't hate Patch Adams as much as the characters do in this movie. If anything, I think Patch Adams is secretly kind of great because it frightened me, which I thought was hysterical, because Patch Adams is a fucking nightmare. And I know exactly what John Waters is saying, is like the fact that it was embraced by audiences is one thing, where it's just this ghoulish, like utterly saccharine, piece of shit. Like I think that's interesting that he was like, no, I don't hate movies, like all the movies, as much as the characters in this movie hate those movies. I just think, it's kind of fun that they become basically terrorists in terms of like their outrage, and it's something that has clearly been frustrating for him, especially considering this was Dirty Shame was his last movie. This was the one before that. I think it is. I see what you're saying, Bryden. It is very abrasive and in your face, like most of his movies. But as someone who identifies as queer, I can't help but feel seen in a lot of the outrage that I wish to project, that I repress most days in terms of. And it's especially funny to watch this movie now and in 2021, where we were in lockdown for a year and a half, and movies basically went away unless they were like independent films or documentaries, or like the smaller films all came out last year, and then they held everything back for this year. And now it's basically like, well, there's still a pandemic going on, so big smart movies like The Last Duel will tank, but like we need Marvel shit, and we need all that stuff to keep movies alive. I kind of watched it with this new viewpoint of like, yeah, fuck those movies. Like, I know they're not, obviously this came out before the age of Marvel, but that's also something I find interesting, is that, this was, he had these feelings that I have towards certain movies now that weren't even existing yet. And I do kind of, as someone who is tried many, many times with the Marvel franchise, just get kind of infuriated about the fact that these movies can be generic pieces of shit. Sorry if anyone's fans. This is just my perspective. I am not judging you personally. I'm just saying.
Ant-Man innocent.
Like, yeah. I mean, there's ones I like. I like the first Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's funny how I even watched it for the first time like 6 years ago and thought it worked, but now the industry has changed so much, and I still think, even though this movie is 21 years old now, there's still a lot of righteous anger and satire going on that could be related to the state of the industry now. And I think that, it's not his funniest film. It's certainly not his most tight. I mean, it's not
his grossest.
It's not his grossest either. There are moments that are a little slack and a little sloppy, but John Waters has never been about like being. He's never been like a perfectionist. He's never been like the aesthetic has to be on point at all times. It's all about the message. And I think that especially after reading interviews with him in this book that I have, it sounds like he's just as much in on the joke that these people are also insane. They have a right to be angry, but their methods of going through making their point are extreme, to the point of just like inconsolability. So I think this movie's a blast. I really enjoy it, but I understand I know Roger Ebert, for example, I think he gave it 1.5 stars and was just like, it's just John Waters goofing off with his friends. And it is, but I mean, he also got Melanie Griffith, who he never worked with before. He got Stephen Dorff. He got, Adrian Grenier. I know I mentioned this before, but Adrian Grenier going from this to Entourage is just insane to me, because that guy...
Is this like the... I mean, we discussed it recently in our chat, but like, is this around the time of Entourage?
I mean, Entourage was what? You watched the entire show. Okay, so 2004. So that was 4 years. Yeah. Yeah, Brandon, you watched the entire show. It's just funny, though, because he plays the character of, like, the Leonardo DiCaprio movie star in that show. So to see him here being, like,
he's just a part of the gang.
He's such a vital figure in this, like, underground, basically, like, domestic... He's a domestic terrorist who's so involved in fucking up mainstream
What do they call themselves? Celluloid terrorists? Cinema terrorists?
Yeah, celluloid terrorists. Yeah. And but it also, in addition to all the outrage, I mean, it's not subtle, but the fact that, I mean, we opened the show with this, the fact that John Waters is showing his love for filmmakers like David Lynch, Kenneth Anger, Spike Lee, you know, it's not just, not all cynicism and anger. He genuinely loves movies and just wants, you know, he's not, as much as I can see people coming off of this movie being like John Waters is now becoming in, like, seeing himself as, you know, capital I important, I don't think he is still like being like, no, this is like vital cinema that everyone should see. I think he's still just goofing off, and he's like, I take comedy seriously, and that's as far as
I don't think he would take himself in capital I important if there wasn't so much comedy in this.
Yeah, and he's spoken out about how he deals with politics and, you know, important subjects with humor. That's just the way he does it, and I can understand, especially, I totally understand Bryden why his sense of humor doesn't click. I think it's there's something about how angry he is, but how never mean-spirited he is, which is weird to say because they are going into theaters and like causing, you know, basically shoot-ups and stuff like that. Like, it's never just targeting it's never just targeting Hollywood. It's also being like, yeah, but I'm also insane. Like, us cinephiles are also crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in interviews,
like, they're crazy passionate.
In interviews, he talks, like, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, it was. I always thought of him as more mean-spirited when he, like, in the era of Multiple Maniacs and Pink Flamingos. And,
I mean, Pink Flamingos. He even gave an interview where there's a scene in Pink Flamingos where, I mean, it is tough to watch. Pink Flamingos will always be tough to watch. I mean, I love that movie to pieces, but it is disgusting. And there's a scene where they basically fuck a chicken to death. And it was a real chicken, and, you know, it died. And you see it die on screen. But then when asked about it, John Waters is like, yeah, but we rescued that chicken from a slaughterhouse, and if it comes down to it, I think that chicken lived a pretty good life. It got fucked, it got to be in a movie, and then we ate it. So, like, you know...
yeah, but it is interesting. Like, when I first saw this, I always had looked forward to movies by auteurs that commented about the entertainment industry. Like The Player and Ed Wood have since become all-time favorites, just because, like, this sort of sparked the idea. Like, filmmakers are trying to comment about the entertainment industry through their own themes that they keep on exploring. Or it's just, it happens to be a Robert Altman movie or a Tim Burton movie about like taking place in Hollywood. So it's like, and I think that could be just like the latter with CECIL B. Demented.
Kevin, what did you think?
Oh, I already gave my initial thoughts. You were the last one to go.
Oh, oops, sorry.
Couple of things, just from like research quotes that I found. Not to make it sound like I did like hours of research. I did like maybe a couple of hours.
Hey, we have a podcast. You're doing research. I think that's a good thing.
He talked about how it's not just Hollywood movies that he'll hate on, but also like independent movies too. Like, there can be like bad independent movies, but also how like Hollywood movies aren't made with care, but then like independent movies aren't made with care. There's an interview where he talks about hang on, I'm just gonna find what the interview it is. Oh yeah, he says, I went to see a popular new independent film that played in Baltimore, and I went, and I was the only person in the theater, and the film broke down, and I just sat there, and nobody fixed it. And then I went out and said, are you gonna fix it? And they were like, oh, all right. No wonder people don't go to the movies. So I think like there's,
so funny.
Yeah, so it's interesting that he's like, I mean, that shows like he's, you know, lashing out at the theater owners, and like CECIL B. Demented too. I mean, he says like in that interview, but the Baltimore theater doesn't fix the movie. He says like he wants to like pistol whip the projectionist like CECIL B. Demented. But it's the idea of like him satirizing this thing that he likes. Is that what's? I mean, I don't want to get into like, maybe this is like a broad discussion. Maybe it's a thing I'm not quite well versed enough in to ask. But like, obviously, I don't want him punching down on people that like are like, you know, like marginalized and whatnot. Like, that would be awful and everything. But like, and I get that he likes movies. I mean, he wouldn't be making movies if he didn't like movies. Although I don't know, that's debatable sometimes. But where am I going with this? He says that like, I mean, He said, I basically attack things I like. And should satire be, like, he's punching up, but, like, if you're punching up at something, like, or punching at things that are, like, high up and everything, like elite, so-called, is that, like, is that the right way that's maybe the wrong way to refer to it, but, like, is that how satire should work? Or does that make for good satire? Punching up at something, but also maybe does that, like, soften it if you like the thing that you're satirizing? I don't know if that's an unfair question to ask.
No, I get what you're asking.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I think the scene where they go into the Patch Adams director's cut screening and they don't punch down at the people like sobbing. They're just like, you have been manipulated by press releases and like studios and stuff like that. I don't think he's making fun of those people. He's not like, the characters aren't going in to shoot the people who paid money. He's going in to attack big multiplex studios that open in shopping malls like in here. And I mean it always depends on satire is such a weird, delicate balance of what works for you and what doesn't. I mean, for example, where we are today, I have not seen Don't Look Up yet, but I have seen The Big Short and Vice, and Adam McKay makes my skin crawl with the way he's just consistently punching down. He's like, I am punching. And
it's pretty unsettling that's our go-to name for modern satire.
Yeah, and those, I don't know.
I mean, like, granted, like, Don't Look Up is a pretty big new release, but I just wanted to say, like...
But, like, he does make... Adam McKay claims he's making fun of Dick Cheney and, the Wall Street brokers and Big Short, but, like, he is also, people who invested in the housing crisis in the best possible ways for their advantage, but, like, he does still do things that are like, oh, people don't want to, like, in Vice, I'm pretty sure it starts off with a montage of, like, people don't want to read up on the news, they just want to go home and watch Fast and the Furious movies and party, and it's just like, well, fuck you. Like, dude, like... You're not handling this with any nuance, and it's just so heavy-handed in a way that is unintentionally on your part offensive, where I know if Adam McKay thought that, like knew that we were thinking about this, he'd probably be like, oh shit, that wasn't my intention. But I guess, I mean, I guess this gets into the whole big thing of what is satirical and what is appropriate satire, because John Waters' satire in this movie is very blunt. But it's not. I guess it helps that all of his arguments I agree with, and I can also see him poking fun at the characters. I mean, like, not to get into this. I mean, I'm not trying to sidestep away from the question, but his characters are insane in this movie. I mean, Alicia Witt's character is like, do you want to know why I got into porno? On Christmas when I was 10 years old, my whole family fucked me under a Christmas tree. So it's like, it's clearly
He dragged that joke out a lot.
He really dragged that joke out. And maybe it should have just been like,
I fuck
that
all my
line
directors.
and that's it. But I did think that line reading was funny, because it is kind of like, okay, he's not making fun of the fact that she was assaulted. It's not making fun of the fact that these people and their politics come from a form of trauma or abuse. It is just kind of like it's the absurdity of all. Like, if it takes place in no sense of reality. It's so clearly Waters land. I guess that's the other thing, is like, I also think Paul Verhoeven's a great satirist, and I know a lot of people aren't in his wavelength, but whenever I watch a Paul Verhoeven movie, I'm like, okay, I'm in Verhoeven land here. Like, just enough of reality, but also very much within this filmmaker's hands, who can clearly say, this is what world I'm building for you, and you can react to it as you see fit. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, and to be, I think I did say it, but I do want to reiterate. The problem, my issue with that, I have issues with the movie. It is not the fact that it's unrealistic. I am aware that it is not taking place in reality.
I know that.
Just want to make that clear for everyone here, also for our listeners.
I hope I didn't make that unclear, that I distrust your point of view, because I know
Bryden
exactly
thought this was a documentary. Yeah.
But
he thought Melanie Griffith jumped like 3 stories and lived, and she was like, this woman is superwoman. Wow.
But it is,
her hair lit on fire, and it actually,
but it is. I see where you're coming from, Bryden, because it is broad. I mean, it's not exactly. I don't want to say it isn't nuanced, because I think a lot of people will watch this and be like, John Waters is finger wagging at everyone who likes Forrest Gump, which I don't think he's saying that at all. But it is definitely. it's that theme he's hitting you over the head with, and you kind of have to. At least I saw him poking fun of himself, but it can very much. I can understand why it can very much come across as, mainstream Hollywood sucks and blah blah blah. But he even gave an interview where he was just like, "Look, I fucking fly first class. I stay in like hotel rooms every night when I'm like on board. Like, I am a part of this problem. Like, I am very much a part of this system." But he's like, "Where else do I go if I want to succeed?" It's kind of the thing you have to compromise with. And I think that's what he's doing here, is that his movies are getting bigger and he's able to get bigger stars, but he also, I think part of him is kind of like, oh yeah, I do feel some guilt and shame and slightly selling out, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
Right. But he's
and
never...
I guess, like,
go ahead.
If he was satirizing a lower class, then I think that would in turn make it mean-spirited. But instead, since he's like making, like Charlie's saying, he's making fun of himself and the things that he's noticing around him and where cinema is going. It's with like a level of passion. So I do think, like, because it's not punching up, it's more just like another form of satire. It's not like right or wrong. It's
And I mean, he's on the money with some things. I mean, when they're going, it's like and it's kind of like a artist, like the fact that this movie was like released by Artisan and almost like comes off like a self dunk. Like it's when they go to like the party where like they're eating all the oysters and they're like shooting the film executives. I think it's Melanie Griffith who yells at them for like the film executives for greenlighting foreign language film remakes and video game movies. And
yeah, that's right.
Lo and behold,
right,
3 years later. What's released by Artisan Entertainment? House of the Dead.
Yeah.
Goddamn right.
Yeah.
Goddamn right.
Yeah, and isn't that where the guy's like, "Hey, I'm only a co-executive producer."
Yeah. I also think.
And
oh no, go
also,
ahead. Sorry, Jack.
I feel like I would really regret this if it wasn't mentioned that Honey Whitlock at the very beginning, very timely, isn't that where Nancy Reagan, didn't I share a room with her or something?
Did she fuck in my hotel room? Yeah.
Right. And then she's like,
"Do I have that
like,
wrong?"
It's Pat Nixon. Pat Nixon.
Pat Nixon. Yeah. Right. And then she's like, "Ricky Lake, go find everybody that's had sex in this room." And
she thought
like,
I was kidding.
But I also think that's important too, is the casting of Melanie Griffith. I mean, Melanie Griffith was a bigger actress in the late 80s, early 90s, and her career was kind of taking a dip. And I think that John was like watching, he clearly saw that Larry Clark film and was like, oh, she can take risks. What if she can also make fun of herself? And she was like, I'd be happy to do that. So, I mean, she even says, I have an Academy Award nomination at one point, which is not a subtle joke at all, but she did get an Academy Award nomination. Yeah. So,
and it's also to see like how susceptible Honey Whitlock is to these amateur guerrilla filmmakers, where like she's almost brainwashed as easily by this group in CECIL B Demented as she is Hollywood. So it's like they're kind of manipulating her to do similar things.
That's where the Patty Hearst of it all comes in, because the main question about Patty Hearst is how much of it, when does it stop being kidnapping and when does she start being autonomous in it, and nobody's ever going to know. So it's like that's the big question you always leave with when you go through all the Patty Hearst stuff. But I think one last thing about this, and then we'll go through the plot real quick, is that like with the Patch Adams stuff, he's not making fun of people that want to watch Patch Adams. He's more so just like, well, the reason you want to watch this is not of your own volition. It's because you're told you should watch it. And it's just like you should watch stuff without somebody telling you about it or something like that, which, yes, he was talking about that he's as much part of the mainstream as he's not, but like even when his budgets got bigger, which I don't think they ever went over like 15 mil.
No,
they're always him no matter what. None of it feels like a studio took him and like tried to make their version of a John Waters movie, which they did with Hairspray, the remake, but not with him at the helm. So
that's so funny. They talk about that in interviews about how like Hairspray, the movie and the musical, is like taking off like around like the remake of Hairspray in like 2007. That's like taking off around the same time that Waters is like struggling to get movies made. Like that's really
which
funny.
Is so sad that it's just like he was just like, oh, I can easily lever this to get like 10 mil, right? Because y'all made gangbusters off that, and they were just like, No.
He also brought up that in an interview, he was like, what's most subversive about my movies to me is like the fact that Hairspray became like a favorite for families to rent on VHS. Like he was like, I never made the movie expecting that. Yeah. He was like, I never made that movie expecting that to be like a mainstream hit or something that can give me money. It's just funny to me because I made the movie I wanted to make, and then it turned out to have mass appeal. And by the way, I previously used the term "he slightly sold out." I don't ever think John Waters sold out, so I don't ever want that to be weaponized
that is something
against me.
That's something that he talks about in an interview with Tony Pomfret on a site called Netribution. I think it's an English site, like a British site. But the interviewer says, as your careers develop, people are starting to say that you've sold out again. And Waters says, they said that with Female Trouble. They're always going to say that. Stephen Dorff and Melanie Griffith don't eat shit. If they did eat shit, I wouldn't be here today. I always wanted to sell out, but no one would buy me. That's his quote, which I think is pretty funny.
Do you also think Stephen Dorff made this movie because Blade was 2 years prior and people gave him such shit for that? And I think he's...
Really?
No,
in what way?
I just think that people were really harsh on him.
Awesome in Blade.
Oh, I think he's awesome too,
so awesome.
But I definitely can see this as Stephen Dorff being like, yeah, well, fuck you. I'll go work with John Waters, who actually appreciates what I have to offer. I actually think Stephen Dorff's pretty great, and he's been honest about, all sorts of struggles. I think he's amazing in the Sofia Coppola film Somewhere, where he's perfectly cast as a has-been.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up people criticized him in Blade, considering like it was only this past summer that he's like, fuck Marvel, like I would never do anything comfortable. And it's like, oh, Mansui, what is this? Like another actor coming out against anti-Marvel.
That's a different Marvel at the time.
Oh
that's
god,
for sure.
I bought
of course, but I guess that maybe like is he still a little bit petty about like people nagging on his Blade performance? Blade's a blind spot for me.
He was a child star who tried to be a serious actor and also be a movie star and have fun, and I think he had some struggles, but like he was taking the craft seriously as much as his reputation would at first glance appear otherwise. I think that, and for the record, as someone who hates Marvel movies, I bought the 4K of Blade and rewatched it recently. The movie fucking rules. It's so good.
Yeah, I need to rewatch it, but let's go through the plot real quick. It's not a very plotty movie, and we have talked a lot about it already.
And like you said, the runtime, so it's like, oh, nice.
Oh, yeah. It starts out, I'm just going to go through the plot, and then I have a few notes, which is mostly just me, all caps, putting down lines that are fantastic. But Hollywood A-list actress Honey Whitlock publicly presents herself as a sweet and considerate woman, but is actually a profane, unreasonable, and demanding diva. Wikipedia is doing some stuff. While in Baltimore to attend a premiere, Honey is kidnapped by the manic film director CECIL B. Demented and his band of misfit artists who are brandishing themselves kamikaze filmmakers going by the group name Sprocket Holes. Each of the members infiltrates the staff of a theater where the premiere is to take place. They subsequently kidnap Honey as she concludes her remarks on stage. In the ensuing mayhem, the group escapes, where she says the great line, "Call the studio, call Jack Valenti," which, that's funny. Stephen Dorff and his blonde hair, I just wanted to mention that. Honey is taken to an abandoned movie theater where she is kept gagged with tape on her phone, tied up and blindfolded. Honey is introduced to CECIL's crew of followers, each of whom wears a tattoo of a noted filmmaker and reveals unique individual quirks. CECIL explains that he wants to make his masterpiece film and needs Honey to star as the lead. At first she resists, shooting scenes emotionlessly, but when CECIL demands better results, she gives an over-top performance in the opening scene, which pleases him. Apart from the first scene, CECIL and Honey and the crew roam around the city filming scenes at real, unapproved locations, often involving innocent bystanders by the process. Michael Shannon shows up and is asking Honey about Mel Gibson's dick, which is pretty funny. Stephen Dorff is talking about taking a vow of celibacy for celluloid.
What does Mel Gibson's dick and balls look like?
Also, this film...
This is the first time I saw Michael Shannon, too. I think I don't know, maybe.
Also, to be clear, this movie came out before Passion of the Christ and all the stuff we knew about Mel Gibson, which, of course, he was a great star. Marge was trying to get together with Mel Gibson and The Simpsons in this era.
That is a great fucking episode.
Yes.
Gotta always think about the dog with the swifty eyes. Gotta think about it. And then next is the first location for their next scene is a movie theater playing Patch Adams, the director's cut. And I thought it was so funny that he didn't just have the audience member reacting to something. He actually filmed scenes that were meant to be Patch Adams, which is just a bunch of kids going, Patch, please help us, Patch, help.
They're like sobbing the entire time.
They're like fighting, and like it's like a whole scene of them just fighting over who gets to have the clown nose from the doctor, which is pretty funny how they just draw that scene out.
And everyone in the audience is sobbing. They're like inconsolable. Sorry,
I also really like the joke where like they burst into the multiplex and like it whip pans to the concession girl and she says, "Do you know Tarantino?" And then I'm like, okay, whatever, like that's sort of like a lazy line. But then it pans back to Dorff. He's like, "No ad-libbing."
No ad-libbing.
Yeah, that's really funny. Like how he's like just like always in director mode, always extreme. That's like a very funny bit.
Yes.
And then I think it's Honey that she's like, "Do you call this a medium?"
Oh, yeah. They storm with guns and smoke bombs before leaving with their footage. Several bystanders note in interviews that Honey seems younger and cooler than in her recent Hollywood films, but a spokesman for the Baltimore Film Commission says no to cinema terrorism. And then he's continuing we get the great scene where Maggie Gyllenhaal is drinking something and she tells Honey that it's goat urine. You wouldn't understand. It's a Satan thing. So, yeah. Inspired, Cecil decides to invade the luncheon the commission is hosting, the Maryland Film Commission. The group crashes the event and Cecil orders Honey to jump off of the roof of a nearby building, where she does without safety measures. A gunfire ensues between Cecil's crew and the police, during which Rodney, the hairdresser, is killed and Cecil is wounded. Honey uses the opportunity to turn herself into the authorities and they take her away in a police car, but the film group retrieves her soon after. They break her out. Okay, we're all caught up. That's a really great scene. The shootout where they actually learn that these motherfuckers actually have bullets. They're not just filming stuff. They're real, quote unquote, real guerrilla filmmakers.
It kind of reminds me of I don't love this movie, but it kind of reminds me of the Richard Rush movie, The Stuntman, where it's like a guy who's he's like a prisoner who like stumbles onto a film set being shot by Peter O'Toole, and like it's like blurring the line between like how real the stunts are, and like
that's funny.
And there's also like kind of a similar bit where like Peter O'Toole in that movie is like often like, you know, controlling the scene by like, you know, moving around on like sort of like a camera crane and everything to like meet people on like various levels of and everything, and that's often a thing that Dorff is doing. Like the camera, like he'll like raise the crane and everything to like make a really dramatic speech, and the camera will be like looking up at him so he can like have control of the scene and everything. I just thought that was, I don't know if that's what Waters was doing or pulling from, but I just thought it was kind of, that's like a similar bit that's in both movies.
Yeah. That kind of reminds you of like the opening of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang when Jr. like stumbles onto the set.
Right.
Yeah. I also love that Melanie Griffith like is trying to get out of that situation and was like, "I've been kidnapped, please help me," and they handcuff her and she's immediately like, "No, like wait, fuck, they take it back and rescue me." Yeah. Which I completely
can anybody
forgot that...
look at...
Oh, sorry, Jack.
Yeah. Yeah, I just can't look at Alicia Witt and not think about Donna's sister from Twin Peaks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Especially now, like, oh, this isn't right. Like, wait, no, you're supposed to be like 12.
If it makes you feel any better, I always feel bad that when I'm like, oh, Alicia Witt from the Al Pacino disaster, 88 Minutes, if any of you have seen that.
Mine was, Alicia Witt from Urban Legend. You've explained to me 88 Minutes, and it's like,
88 Minutes is...
There's no way that's real.
It's a real movie.
Hey, Jack, how long do you think 88 Minutes is? It's 110 minutes. False advertising. Get the fuck out of my face.
Also, what's her character name? Because her character name in that is just totally reprehensible.
I think you told me this before. Hold on. It is Kim Cummings.
Yeah. Treating Alicia Witt with the respect she deserves, playing a character named Kim Cummings.
This is true.
Yep.
Apparently she's a big Hallmark Christmas actor now.
Oh.
Yeah, well, it comes for all of us eventually.
It was nice to see her in The Return.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
For a second.
Back to the plot, as Honey seems to be actually, it's not listed here, but they go to another theater while they're trying to escape to a kung fu marathon, and while they walk in while they're being chased by the Teamsters and whatnot, and Cecil just goes, "Action fans, help us!" And they all get up and start fighting everybody, and it's a good time. Oh, yes. As Honey seems to be more comfortable with their situation, possibly developing Stockholm Syndrome, she watches a television special discussing her disappearance. Persons who know her, including her ex-husband, are interviewed and come clean about how mean-spirited she was in daily life. Honey now realizes that her desire to escape would only lead her back to Hollywood, where she is hated for being rude. She insists the idea of joining Cecil's followers, but soon reconsiders and declares herself demented forever, Bernita branded to her arm, officially joining the motley crew.
They keep singing that song too. I have it written in my notes. Dorff says "Demented forever." Like they keep, and like there's like a hip hop beat that I think is going the whole time during that scene. It's
That's the scene that I do not like because every time they say it, it annoys the hell out of me. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's fascinating to see D'Angelo Barksdale from The Wire like rap this.
Oh yeah. It's great to see Adrian Grenier do every drug known to man, and every time they're on the run, he's just like, honey, do you want to do some Special K before we do a scene? And she's like, no.
I do love that one line he has where he was like, I had a bunch of problems until I discovered drugs. Now I only have one problem: drugs.
The Sprocket holes then invade the set of the Forrest Gump sequel, which is called Gump Again, starring Kevin Nealon.
It's $65 million, but it's like the cheapest looking set that they're shooting on too.
Yeah, it's so funny.
My former manager at the Coolidge Corner Theater, when Green Book got all those Oscar nominations, like I worked that day, and she was like, "Oh shit, we're gonna get gumped again, aren't we?" And I was
Oh man. Upon arrival, they subdue and replace many of the film's crew, which is the brilliant line that the director screams. He goes, "Hey, nobody can stop the popularity of Forrest Gump."
To this day, true.
Yeah, unfortunately. A gunfight breaks out between Cecil's friends and the Teamsters, who got free. Members of Cecil's crew are either killed or wounded. The surviving Sprocket holes and Honey flee to a nearby pornographic theater and seek refuge inside. This scene is just insanity.
There's also a really funny throwaway bit where the Teamsters are like racing after them after they've been like tied up and everything, and they like run past one of their crew members who's been killed, and they're like, stapled? Because he's been shot to death with a stapled gun by Lawrence Gilliard Jr. And it's just funny, like, just like as they're running, they're like, staples? And then they just keep running. It's like the off-the-cuff line reading is very funny.
Also, we kind of skimmed over one scene where, sorry to cut us off, but like Melanie Griffith is reading her lines off the script, and they're all self-harming, and there's one guy who's putting staples into himself. Maggie Gyllenhaal has like a tongue clamp that she's like using. Like, I thought that was kind of amazing. Anyway.
We have to talk about the porno theater scene. So we learned that that is actually a movie that Alicia Witt's character, Sharish, it's a movie called Rear Entry, and that's pretty great. It's just great shots of the audience. And then they sit in.
The Teamsters look very satisfied. Yeah.
Yeah, and they sit in on it, and they look. Somebody looks over and sees somebody, and he gives them a thumbs up, and his right arm is so muscular and like pink. It made me laugh so
also
hard.
involves a rodent going up her anus.
Hell yeah, it does.
Which I know this is might be an off-color question, but there is an episode of South Park where Mr. Garrison tries to get
Lemmy
Winks. Yeah, and I was like, this is before Lemmy Winks, right? It had to have been.
Everything is before Living Winks.
I mean, that's a great episode of South Park, but for those who don't know, there's an episode of South Park where Mr. Garrison, a gay teacher, tries to get money for being fired for being gay, and in order to do this, he and his partner, Mr. Slave, who's a gay sex worker, he shoves a gerbil up his ass in front of the entire class. And then the rest of the episode is this gerbil trying to make his way from his rectum out through his mouth. And it becomes... that's the type of South Park, like there's a lot of South Park that rubs me the wrong way these days, but that is just pure absurdity where there's characters like the Katata fish and
those are the kind of episodes that have made it last like 20 years.
Once they started being like too topical in like responding to real life events. Like it was always good when it was just anything that happened in the town. Once they were like, oh, Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck have come to town, you're like, okay.
Like,
even though I do love that episode.
I mean, there's an.
You guys aren't tuning in for South Park post-pandemic or whatever?
I haven't watched it yet.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Quick question. Because like, so the movie that Alicia Witt's character's in with the gerbil, it's called, what's the title again? What Entry?
I believe Rear Entry.
That's funny too, because at the start of the movie when Honey is like going to like the screening and everything, they're naming her credits, and she says that they have an Oscar nomination for a movie called Forced Entry, which I just think I don't know if that's like a deliberate joke, but like it's like the similarity.
I think so. Yeah. We only have one last scene left. At their last location, Cecil is shooting the final scene, and also he's injured, so he's pretty much bleeding out. He's shooting the final scene at a local drive-in when law enforcement are alerted. Cecil and his crew invade the projection room, and he proceeds to excite the crowd into a frenzy. He asks Honey to light her hair on fire for the final shot, which she does. With the film finished, the sprocket holes are finally, once it's done, their celibacy can go away. They start having sex in public before the authorities step in. Cecil sets himself completely ablaze as the police arrive. What does he say?
Himself.
He says,
"Yeah,
he says, I have a vision."
I love the guy in the crowd trying to like do that with his own hair and with the lighter.
Oh my god! Yeah,
the sounds
incredible.
that are made when Witt and Dorff are having sex are like the grossest sex sounds I've ever heard. It's like
disgusting.
squishy, it's like squelching almost. I'm like, that is not a sound I want to associate with that activity.
It's also immediate. Like they just fit perfectly.
Well, I thought, because my girlfriend was just like, that's some bad. I was like, oh, I thought it was like his bullet hole wounds, like it's blood. And she was like, that's even worse. Okay.
We've also, I guess in the plot synopsis on Wikipedia does not get into the fact that Stephen Dorff gets shot like 13 times in this movie.
Well, and also
Fidget,
the costume designer, who his mom is Patty Hearst. He gets shot in the dick twice.
Maybe that is why.
Yeah. Cecil sets himself ablaze, blah, 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 to give Honey a chance to escape. In the ensuing chaos, some crew members escape with the raw film footage while others are shot, taken into custody. She is surprised and pleased by the new affection that the crowd has shown to her as she is put in the police van.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it's in that drive-in when I think it's Lyle whose parents show up and they're like, repeat after me, it's just a movie.
Oh no, that's Cecil's parents, who they call him by his real name, Sinclair Stevens.
Yes,
yeah,
that's right.
Water.
In my mind, I had it as somebody else but that kind of looked like Stephen Dorff.
Finney
Chase, Cecil B. Demented, same thing.
Waters also, in an interview with J.T. Leroy, came up with like, J.T. Leroy basically said, I really wanted your movie to have those things like in Animal House where it says, and so got married at the end. I wanted to find out that Melanie Griffith went to jail but also won an Oscar. And Waters is like, that's the sequel. And then he basically came up with all of these reasons why the characters who died could possibly come back to life, which I thought was really was really awesome.
Why not?
I also love that when characters die, they just kind of don't mention it because they've already made this like they've already made this pledge to like live and die by the movie, so when they die it doesn't feel like insane that they're just like, just like, well, yeah, they made that pledge. They don't even mention that. It's just funny to me. I love that because there's the hairdresser who Melanie Griffith is like, I thought gay men were supposed to be delicate, and he's like, that's the thing, I'm straight and I hate it.
And I hate it. That's my man from Idle Hands. Yeah.
And then Petey, who is played by Mike Shannon, as he's credited here, he loves me, and I've tried to be gay for so long, but those whiskers.
And isn't that the character who says, I'm ashamed of heterosexuality?
Yes, that's exactly
it. Which that's a great line.
I love it. And he's just like, and I just have to take it out on someone. And he just starts like going at her hair with the comb.
Yeah.
But she's like so much more understanding as a result of it. It's so good.
Oh, man. Yeah. And Ebert, 1.5 stars.
Look, Ebert was never kind to Waters. I mean,
yeah, I don't see that being his thing. Even though
I understand it too.
Valley of the Dolls, you would think.
It also
I don't know.
It also came out the same year as Freddy Got Fingered, which also has like Waters-esque type of humor where he was just like, I just felt so bad for that woman who had her baby being swung by an umbilical cord. Like, and I'm just kind of like, Roger, I get that, but in no way is this movie saying it takes place in reality. Like, there's
empathy.
I really got to see Freddy's Got Fingered.
Freddy Got Fingered.
You have to.
I know it's a big
fantastic movie.
Agreed. Just want to point out, I looked up the Waters movies that Ebert reviewed. He gave 3 stars to Hairspray and 3 stars to Crybaby, and those are the only movies he liked.
Those are the only ones
by him.
Yeah,
which I haven't seen Crybaby, but I feel like those
Crybaby's
like
really good. It's very.
I feel like those are like the most tame John Waters movies.
Waters talks
like,
about those are the ones to show your kids or something like that. Although he said that he has shown Pink Flamingos to kids and everything, and that was like something that they thought was like kind of funny because like it was like kids like eating shit and everything. He's like, that's what babies do. But then he also said that like I think he also said that maybe like a parent got upset because like in Crybaby they like drink the tears that they cry and everything, and he said that someone did that and they were like, oh okay, I can understand why someone would be upset about that.
He also
because like Crybaby is kind of like his Grease a little bit, and I can sort of see why that has a PG. Brendan, I would recommend you Crybaby.
I gotta see that. I'm gonna
give Waters another chance.
I'm gonna check out a few more ones that I have on my watch list, and like, I accept it could be just like a me problem, or it just might not be my taste and everything. But I'm glad that I'm like at least like checking these movies out. He's clearly
I agree with you. I only
figure.
suggest Crybaby because that's like a straight up comedy. It isn't. It's not like commenting anything. It's not that gross. It's a very good Johnny Depp performance. Willem Dafoe is in it for like 2 minutes.
That's cool. I hope I'm not like. I don't want to like sound like a square because like I feel like I do. Your criticisms are valid. Yeah.
And he also gave Dirty Shame 1 star as I'm looking at it right now. So it's funny that he mentioned Hairspray and Crybaby, which are both PG and PG-13. Whenever Waters goes like full on unhinged, that's when Ebert just can't deal with him.
Yeah, it seems like it. Remind me real quick what Waters' involvement with Valley of the Dolls is.
No, not Waters. I was talking about Ebert. Like, he made
about,
Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. Like, I always thought, like, maybe he would give leeway to movies that are, like, out there. But I guess after he did that, it just didn't happen because, like...
And it's funny you say that because that's a Russ Meyer movie, and then I watched Polyester today, and there's a scene where like the husband is like philandering with like his mistress or whatever, and there's a Faster Pussycat Kill poster I think in the background. So it's like, kind of just I don't know. That's just sort of like a funny little thing that just like 6 Degrees thing I guess that we're talking about.
Also, Bryden, to your point, you are not being a buzzkill at all, and there are certainly directors where it's like, I mean, I've tried to get on Guy Ritchie's wavelength multiple times, and I'm just kind of like, I know that there are a lot of people who I love and respect who are my friends who just love his craft, and it's just not doing anything for me. So we all have those filmmakers, you know.
And other people could be a lot less nuanced with their critiques of Waters and be like, just gross, like get out of here. Just,
how dare you show this?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly. Yeah. You could come off as like an 80s conservative or something,
Right.
And you're not doing that.
Yeah, you could be Kathleen Turner in Virgin Suicides.
Exactly.
Yeah, we know from the last episode that you grew up loving American Pie, so that's not the case. Which who didn't? Yeah.
Jack, you bringing up Kathleen Turner in Virgin Suicides, I'm now thinking like, oh, well, it was perfect casting in the Virgin Suicides because she did Serial Mom like 5 years prior.
Of course, yeah.
So
one of the great performances of the 90s.
Oh, God.
I think we should
Serial Mom's
introduce
great.
it correctly.
Yeah. Closing thoughts on Cecil or on John Waters as a whole? What do we got?
I mean, I fucking love John Waters and hope he gets to do whatever the fuck he wants, but maybe Cecil...
It's like a really easy filmography to close out, too. Like, I only have like 3 or 4 left, so it's like I might as well just finish it.
I don't think this is like necessarily top tier Waters, but I do think it's a culmination of everything he was working towards up until this point, if that makes sense. Like, my favorites are Female Trouble, Desperate Living... Pink Flamingos, Multiple Maniacs. I wouldn't rank those this one as high, but if you're going through his filmography and you come across this one, I think it's definitely a fascinating time capsule for where he was in his career now, and also where movies were in 2000 and how things haven't changed that much in 2021. I mean, this movie's 21 years old, and I'm still feeling a lot of the rage towards mainstream cinema that a lot of his characters are feeling, but also love that he's able to poke fun at us and being like, we're dorks and freaks and geeks and just like we're not normal when it comes to our outrage about this. We're just like weirdly passionate in unconventional ways. So that's where I stand.
Yeah. Going on about his filmography, it's just one of the rare directors who's been, I mean, he started in the early 70s up until 2004, 2005, and so that's about 35 years, and I don't think he's really made a movie that people are just like, oh yeah, you can skip that one. Like, pretty much been consistent his whole career. So that's very admirable.
They're all singular visions, which
Yes.
is like, refreshing to say. I echo Charlie, just like, this isn't my favorite, but I still really, really like it, and I held a special place for it, just considering how early in my film watching, like, I saw it, and I really connected to it that it took place in modern day, and it was commenting on things happening now, if that makes sense. And,
Of course, yeah.
Demented forever. And Kev, this is when you're going to take out like a metal stick and burn.
We're all
me.
branding ourselves right now off camera.
Yeah, you're branding. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm rolling up my sleeve. Yeah.
We got Tom Six, we got Uwe Boll, we got Troy Duffy, and God, we need one more director
You want
to
to
brand
say
ourselves.
Stephen Carpenter, Soul Survivors himself?
Steve Carpenter is what I'll be tattooing, not Steven, you know. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Almost Major. Please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Please follow the pod on Twitter at Almost Major to keep up to date with what movies we will be covering in the future. Myself, I can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at Kev Bonesy. Bryden can be found on Twitter at Bryden Doyle and on Letterboxd at J Doyle. Charlie can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at CT Nash 91. Once again, thank you for listening.